Cryptoverse DAO. We're here with the Standard DAO, an AMA, talking about how they're going to pretty much change the entire stablecoin game in the Cryptoverse. We're excited to have their team here, and thanks for coming. We're very excited to learn more about this project. Care to introduce yourselves?
Thanks, man. Yeah, my name's Joshua Shikala. I started in crypto a very long time ago. I was pretty lucky to find Bitcoin back in 2010, and just kept on falling down that rabbit hole. In 2015, 13 actually, I lost a lot of money in the Mt. Gox collapse, which was the first Bitcoin exchange in the world. And it inspired me and my brother to build the first decentralized exchange. And Ethereum hadn't launched yet, wasn't around, wasn't a twinkle in Vitalik's eye yet. But we thought, we can't really do it a decentralized exchange because the op return codes aren't good enough yet in Bitcoin. So we decided to focus on transparency instead. And so we built Vaultoro, the world's most transparent exchange in the world. And we also made it that the counter asset was gold bullion, physical gold, secured in a high security vaulting facility in Switzerland and at Brinks. And so it was an order book that you could trade between Bitcoin and physical gold. And the good thing about gold was it's fully allocated in your name as your legal property, and it can be insured to however much you have. So unlike a bank account, bank accounts are only insured by the FDIC for 250K and in Europe for 100K. So gold is a really nice thing to do. And plus, if we ran the business badly, then liquidators couldn't touch our clients' assets because they're not on the company's books. The gold is secured in a user's name as their legal property. And so that was really the use case for Vaultoro, and we also made it ultimately transparent, so anyone could basically audit us in real time. And then years later, I'm looking at all these stable coins that are happening, and everyone keeps asking me to tokenize gold, and I'm like, you don't want to tokenize gold just like that. Who wants? Why would you want it tokenized? Because you don't know how much a bottle of whiskey costs in grams of gold. No one does. Maybe some hardcore gold bugs, but I've even been to gold conferences where they're like trying to make this deal happen because they're all passionate about it, like in gold, and they can't really figure it out. So really what you wanted to do was we wanted to build a stablecoin that was backed by gold, but pegged to different fiats. So we a year ago started thinking about, okay, let's look at all the different stablecoin protocols. There's a video of me in the Big Conf talking with the founder of Reserve, and we talked about Luna and how that was going to collapse. And that was 2 years ago. That was Neville from Reserve, and we thought, let's build a proper stablecoin solution, like the ultimate stablecoin solution, one that is backed by actual assets like Bitcoin and Ethereum, but also physical gold and bullion that can be tokenized. And then also let's make it that it's layer 2 compatible, plus that people can output the fiat that they want. So rather than just focus on USD, let's allow people to do standard euro, standard yen, standard shekel, standard anything they want, and rand and ruble. We're starting with euro, and very quickly also going to USD, and that's the main thing. The other thing we wanted to look at was, okay, Maker's great. We love Maker. It's fantastic, but how can we don't want an entire economy running on interest. It also cuts out a lot of the Muslim world. It cuts out some of the Christians that don't believe in it's called usury or interest rates, interest fees. So how do we build an entire economy on zero interest to borrow from yourself in these contracts? And so we switched up the pegging mechanism a little bit, and our internal modelers figured out, yeah, this can be a thing. So that's really the USP for the standard, is to build really the standard for stablecoins based on real assets backing it, over collateralized, similar to Maker, except let's make it on layer 2 of Ethereum, and also then be cross-chain. So we want to be able to have cross-chain minting so that people can choose the chain that they want to be on. That's coming in the next version, but we might launch on 2 chains at once. We're still discussing that. But yeah, EVM compatible, that's for sure. And yeah, that's kind of a long intro of me and the project. Sorry about that.
Oh no, that's beautiful. Like, that's why we're here. We want to learn more about it. It's a very, it's actually looking like you guys are wanting to tackle this stablecoin problem head on and create something that's actually stable. That's actually more universally accepted in not only the cryptoverse, but also applicable in the real world as well. So that's amazing.
Yeah. And I mean, there are, like Tether and USDC, they're all great, but we believe it's basically a competition between the centralized stablecoins and the decentralized stablecoins. And I firmly believe that the centralized stablecoins will be made illegal by central banks as soon as they release their CBDCs. And so the only thing that will really compete are decentralized stablecoins. And the option that people have are algorithmic decentralized stablecoins, and we've all seen where that's headed.
With that, like, why are you, like, I noticed you guys made a point on your website saying, this isn't an algorithmic stablecoin. We're not, we're not trying to form another Luna here. What's took a hard stance on that. What's the reasoning?
Yeah, so originally we actually called it the next generation of algorithmic stablecoins because the nomenclature around what an algorithmic stablecoin was still sort of unsure. So there was times where even Maker DAO was calling themselves algorithmic because there's different voting, and we were thinking about how do we before, when we were having an interest rate or a stability fee, we're thinking how do we set that? Because if we want to scale to many fiats, so we have a whole bunch of different stablecoin outputs, how do we determine the interest rate? And we were looking at things like prediction markets, because prediction markets are one of the really the best way humans have of determining the future. Because people put skin in the game and then bet on the truth, basically, of what it's going to be in the future. And usually it works out. It's not perfect, but it's pretty cool. And then we were looking at AI, and we were looking at a whole bunch of things until we removed it altogether. I mean, it's still going to be in there as a black swan event function to lift the interest rates in case there is a depegging. But its aim is to always be at zero. And I think algorithmic stablecoins are a really nice pipe dream. They're a really nice idea, but why? Why do it? Why not? They talk about capital efficiency, that you want capital efficiency, that you're wasting capital by putting it in and locking it up. But really, if you look at something like the gold standard, the original gold standard, and that's one of the reasons we're called the standard, it's that the government would hold, basically lock up gold as a holding and would, lend you some money, that will be a USD, a fiat representation, and it would always buy back a gram of gold. And it was a little bit different, of course, because it was pegged to a gram, an ounce. But yeah, the idea really is that you want real assets backing the amount of money that's floating around. In fact, you want more assets backing it than there are currency. And if you look at some of during the lunar crash, you saw one of the very few stablecoins that actually didn't depeg, even USDT depegged USDT, was DAI, and DAI is ultimately over collateralized in every possible direction. So that's why I believe that is the best way to have a decentralized stablecoin. There's two forms. One, a decentralized stablecoin is over collateralized, and one would be algorithmic. And I don't believe algorithmic can work long term due to manipulation. The other thing is, like, if you think about algorithms, you get these sort of market feedbacks where an algorithm can be gamed. So imagine if you have a marching army, for instance, you get this sort of resonant frequency when they march across a bridge, and you give a stamp every time the bridge moves down. You push, everyone stamps at the same time, and you get this idea of the bridge starting to resonate really largely, and you inject a bit of energy every time as these oscillations get bigger and bigger and it crashes. I think and that's why they say that the army puts like a double step in place for an army for when they're marching across bridges and stuff, to sort of break that frequency. And the same thing could be the case for algorithmic stablecoins. When you have an algorithm and the outcome is known, and let's say it's I guess you could make it not so basic. You could add some entropy in there, but basically, if you know what an algorithm is going to do, you could keep injecting more capital at a frequency and wait until these oscillations get bigger and bigger and sort of break it. And there's ways of gaming algorithms. So if they're basic, most things on the blockchain need to be fairly basic, because it's like Ethereum's like the power of, I don't know, Nokia 2110. And so you want to try to keep stuff fairly basic in terms of computation.
I mean, that's fair. I mean, simplicity, less loopholes, less possibilities to take advantage of it. It's a good point.
Yeah.
So with over collateralizing, that is something that I love, because you do see that with the algorithmic stablecoin. If it's turned off, just like with Luna and everything like that, it has its issues. And it was supposed to be the prodigal son, like, oh my goodness, the algorithmic stablecoins are here, they're going to save the day. But we quickly found out that there were weaknesses in that armor that are detrimental to its ability to grow.
Yeah, I mean, you're basically backing an entire stablecoin on fluff, on a token that you say has some sort of intrinsic value, but it doesn't really. It's just got the value of trust. And if you can mint infinite amounts of it, like we saw in Luna, and I'm pretty sure we're going to see it in Tron as well. Let's see.
Ooh, Tron. Yeah, I had a lot of bullish notions about Tron at first. And I feel like it had a lot of promise, but they did not execute everything up to the point where I thought that they would.
Yeah, well, they launched USDD, which was pretty much a exact copy of Luna, and tied it directly into their blockchain, so infinite Tron can be minted, and it's pretty scary.
Well, we're definitely going to be seeing, especially in this bear market, we're going to be seeing how strong all of these projects will be. One thing with the gold backing, there's only one other project that I actually really looked into. It's about a year ago. I found the Apollo blockchain. And they do that to an extent. They own gold mines throughout Africa, and they use them to back the worth of their blockchain. Pretty much, that's their collateral. And but the thing is that they didn't do it with the I would say the precision and the partnerships that you guys are doing, which is a relief, because whenever I first saw that, it was just they didn't grow it as well as they should have. But it seems like you guys are actually taking in the whole over collateralization to the T and making sure that gold isn't it. You have all these different realms that can make sure that this is backed fully. But taking the bear market, how do you guys, with this is a pretty down bear market. In my opinion, I'm still happy with it because, millionaires are made in bear markets. You just have to hodl through and know how to, invest wisely. But what's your guys' team's, experience with this? What's your plan to move around in this kind of market?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, we launched Authora in February 2015, so we've seen many bulls and bears come and go, and really these bear markets are a time to flush out nonsense projects, just crap, right? And we raised a small round right at the start, and we hedged it well, and we've got enough liquidity to build. So these bear markets are just really great for building. It's time to build, and once you've built, keep perfecting it until you start seeing the market turn around, and that might be a little while. I don't know. Like, the thing is, this market's crashed so harshly that there isn't much. When a market goes down so quickly, there's also not that much resistance on the way up either. So let's say there's not much going on the way down. On the way up, there isn't much either. So let's see. Generally speaking, it's been a really strange bull market over the last little while. Like, it hasn't followed the same trend. It consolidated sideways, flashed downwards for a long time. And so I don't know. It just seems weird. I think this market has gone a bit different because it's now so tightly bound to the stock market and institutional money. So when the NASDAQ starts to drop, you definitely see the crypto market starting to drop, and that was never really the case. But yeah, it's similar to the gold market though. When you have big events in the money markets, basically you get a massive sell-off in gold as well, and people will be like, but I thought gold was a safe haven, in times of trouble. And the thing is, it is, but not in the moment of a chaotic thing happening. In that moment, people are trying to cover positions, and they just need to get everything into cash so they can cover themselves. But long term, gold is a really great hedge against inflation, and so is crypto. And but anyway, try to build during these times.
Well, I mean, that's a good point. That's why I like bear markets, to be honest. I know they're not the most fun thing to be in, but whenever it comes down to it, you gotta love them, because especially after shitcoin summer a year and a half ago, I was extremely happy when the market crashed and they just all died. And then, you saw those BT reward tokens coming out left and right, and then they died. And it's, this one is especially harsh. Just like you said, you're seeing a lot of the strong projects. You'll notice them. They're still hanging on. They're still building. They're still saying, guys, like, we're here to stay. This is the future. And then you're seeing all the rest of the projects that are like, oh crap, like, what, other than a cheap laugh and some dividends being paid out, what even is our use case? They can't market anything, because unless there's a bull run, there's nothing to market. And you see, and the only downside is that I would say it's been directly, you see all these groups, even the YouTubers are seeing it. A lot of people are leaving the cryptocurrency world right now because it's just such a bad market. People are just deleting their Telegram and Discord apps, and they're like, you know what, I'll download it whenever it's, whenever the markets come back up, and they don't even want to touch the market until it's back on track. And So effectively, they're just feeding the whales, in that sense, because they're just, the whales are just going to continue buying the dip, and then whenever it pumps back up, people are like, oh my god, Bitcoin's back at like 70K, and I should have bought at the bottom. And you're just sitting there like, well, you should have stayed in. But with and that in mind, keeping your gains up. I saw on your website, it's the staking and ROI. It's whenever talking earlier, it's what's how does that play into your not only the stable coins but also your governance token?
Yeah, so we had a look. A lot of research went into what happened to stablecoins that died, that didn't originally take off, and also looking at the different pegging mechanisms. This was right at the start, and one of the big things that really came to be fairly obvious fairly quickly was that we have liquidity issues with coins that die. So how do you build deep liquidity for a coin when it's just starting out? How do you make sure that it won't depeg? Because it doesn't matter what pegging mechanism you've got. If there's not enough liquidity, it'll just shift. So and I'm pretty sure that the stablecoin will not be pegged in the very, very few early, few days when it launches. But maybe it will. So what we thought of doing was taking inspiration from some of the ideas coming out of different protocols. One of them being Phi protocol, and also there was some good things about Olympus DAO as well. There was some terrible things as well, but the good things were the bonding curves, and the idea to buy liquidity so that the protocol has enough liquidity and to deal with that liquidity rather than renting liquidity out, and then something better comes along and everyone just pulls their liquidity and goes on to the next best thing. You actually buy the liquidity and hold it. So what we're doing is we're launching the S Euro in an initial bonding curve offering, which means that you buy S Euro under a euro. So you buy it at a discount, and every bit of volume that comes in lifts that discount to be less and less until it reaches a 1-to-1. And what that does is it gets S Euro in the hands of people. And then the next stage to that is enabling people to basically put that S Euro into a liquidity pool along with a stable coin like whatever pairs. We're looking at USDC at the moment, and then we also bond that over 7 days. So over 7 days, and we don't have the exact percentages made public yet, but we're playing a whole bunch of models through to make sure that there aren't some sort of perverse game, theoretical plays there, and that would pay out in TST, and then and people can then stake the TST. That protocol control value that we collect over the first 2 stages will be used to basically have deep liquidity for the S Euro, but also collect trading fees on DEXs, and those will be dropped onto TST stakers. And that's the sort of bootstrapping mechanism. And I think it'll make people very happy because they pretty much instantly gain a good ROI on their S Euro, because it will eventually be €1, and they're buying it at like 80 cents all the way up. So that's kind of the bootstrapping. And then after that's done, we release the private vaults, which allow people to lock up the Ethereum, Matic, and Bitcoin, wrapped Bitcoin, as well as have the tokenized gold to then basically start to mint S Euro from their collateral. And that's kind of the launching and roadmap. The beginning there, it's stage 1 and 2 are really important to make sure that we become over collateralized really quickly. And so what's not made up in the initial phase of the bonding curve, the discount curve is made up in the bonding curve, the 7-day bonding curve, pretty quickly.
Wow. Man,
that makes
you
sense.
guys really
It's pretty complex.
It's complex, but it should, and that's the thing of it, is that to create such a stable coin, there has to be a healthy mixture of the simplicity, like you said, throughout the blockchain, but it has to be sort of complex to get to that. You don't want to just see, some of these stable coins are released and they're like, all right, we got some of the backing, it's pegged, and then all of a sudden you always see it just dropping from its peg left and right. So this is very good. So the S euro, where are you going to move from that? Like, are you looking at, an S rupee, an S yen, an S dollar? Where's the market that you kind of want to move to after that?
The thing is, we've been grappling with doing S euro versus S USD. And the reason why we chose S euro to do the first one is because it is really a blue ocean, and people that actually use the currency want it. The reason why everything's in USD and pretty much every stablecoin's USD is because the world talks about USD. So when you even in Europe, they'll have their crypto wallets set to USD prices, because when you're watching YouTube videos and technical analysis videos, they're all talking about USD. So you start to get used to talking in Bitcoin and USD. But if you look at it on, so that's the speculation side. But if you look at the actual user side, we, running Vaultoro for such a long time as a Bitcoin only business, we have a lot of freelancers working for us that accept crypto. And, just before, from 2015 to 2020, everyone was invoicing us always in Bitcoin and sometimes Ethereum later on. But there was a definite mark around about 2020 where people just started invoicing us in Tether. And I was like, why are you doing that? Why do you want Tether? And they said every time, well, it's just super easy to account for. You send an invoice for 100 and you get 100. And my accountant is mega happy with that. And then I go and buy the speculative asset. I go and buy Bitcoin with that. And that's just, another thing to deal with later. But in terms of my business, when I send an invoice, I want to be paid in that, and it just solves all the headaches. And this is definitely the case also with Europe, because right now, European freelancers, and there's a lot of them wanting to get into crypto or being paid in crypto, have to invoice in USD and then have that conversion again to euro. It's not the greatest pain point, but it's still a pain point. And I think that needs to be solved. But yeah, to answer your question, I believe USD is probably the best one to go next, but I also have a strong eye on rupee. We do want to also put it out to the DAO. The DAO's very small right now. It's just very internal, but it's growing, and these sorts of questions we want to put out there to try and get some data, and we'll also try to find strong data points to see what is useful. I believe the Indian market is like this huge market that's undiscovered right now. And we can see in South American markets as well that people are using crypto more and more and more and more in terms of being paid. So I think rupee is a really nice next step after USD.
I mean, yeah, no, that would be good. The US dollar, like you said, it's kind of the not to make a joke, but it's the standard whenever it comes down to a lot of these technical analysis and just the lingo that is used throughout the space. With the Indian market, I've always found it to be like, it's weird because like the Indian market outside, like not whenever you don't look at what their government has done to the crypto market there, it's strong. Like they want in, they constantly are trying to make new platforms, tokens, their own stable, everything. And then the government jumps in, and then they did that 30% flat tax. I want to say maybe I can't think. I think maybe like 6 months ago or something. And then all of a sudden, their market crashes 70%, and then like all of their launch pads and their marketplaces and everything, they immediately run away and start putting all of their services in Dubai, the Middle East, and they wanted nothing to do with it. But I think that that's the problem with mass adoption right now, is that a lot of these governments don't know exactly how to properly approach it. So it's either one extreme or the other, and India apparently chose one. The other extreme was just like, you know what, tax it all. Just a huge flat 30% fee, and everybody was just like, yeah, no. And it crashed it. But I think that eventually they're going to come around, and sort things out. And then all of a sudden they're going to see that beautiful market just explode. Because, like you said, between, in the next 3 blossoming crypto markets, in my opinion, Middle East is already blossomed. It's already there, but I think it's so much more growth to happen there. Africa and India. Those 3, oh my goodness.
Yeah, well, parts of Africa already have massive adoption. Nigeria, huge adoption. And it's pretty much sort of under the radar. But yeah, and the thing is with capital gains tax, this is why borrowing against your assets is much better as well, because if you borrow against your assets, you're not selling them. And that means that you don't pay capital gains tax on them. You get to buy your car and then go and earn that money again and pay yourself back, and boom, you haven't paid capital gains. So it is a really useful tool to borrow against your assets, but as we can see in Celsius, it's a complete freaking nightmare if you use a centralized entity like that, because they basically locked up 18,000 wrapped Bitcoin into MakerDAO, and not only that, they bought a whole bunch of UST and doing the 20% thing, swapping USDC for UST, and just basically trading like degens with billions of dollars worth of other people's money. It's just terrible. So, I'm a big fan of borrowing against your assets. I think it's the way to go. But you don't want to let other people do it, because it's the same problem you get with governments, right? I often say to people, if I was to say to you, hey, take your credit card and go out there and buy whatever you want, go to town, you'd be like, oh, okay, but it's my own credit card, and they say, yeah. So you'd be very, very careful with what you buy, because it's your own money, right? But if I then gave you my credit card and said, go to town, man, just buy whatever you want, go to town, you'd be still a little bit careful with my money, because you'd be like, oh, I know, Josh, I don't know.
You're giving too much credit to these institutions. A little bit careful?
Yeah, you'd be like, oh, yeah, let's go, I don't know, I'll get what I want, depending on how much you hate me. But then in terms of government, if I gave you a credit card and I said, this has got an endless amount of cash, and you could just buy whatever you want, and I don't know who it belongs to. You go to town and you just go, yeah, bring it on, whatever, And so, and
I'm halfway through the day and on my 5th Ferrari. Let's do this.
Let's get a purple one next. Yeah, I'm not, Celsius, it wasn't as bad as the government, but it was probably just as bad in terms of not really taking it serious that they're investing their customers' money, and what the hell? Why would you put it in these 20% returns on UST? It's bound to fail. Too good to be true investing.
Well, you see that a lot of ROI traps lately. You see these projects come out and they're immediate. That they're it's almost as if their only function is to go out there and say, hey, here's 1,600%, and you're just sitting there like, to a lot of these new investors, they're like, crypto's crazy, that sounds reasonable. Why not? And then they end up losing all their money because they don't know how to do the proper farming techniques and things like that. And then they also don't realize that is just not sustainable. And it's a pain. It really is, because you see a lot of people lose their money continuously through these traps, and that it's funny because Celsius did it on a larger scale now, and it's even more scary because with Bitcoin crashing this hard, you're looking at Michael Saylor. His margin calls are inching ever so close to liquidation, and
yeah, I mean, with Michael, like, the only proof we have is from what he tweeted, and it wasn't too bad. But Celsius, you can see right there, it's right on. it's really visible. Like, you can see the vault that it's in. But also they have a problem with they bought a whole bunch of staked ETH and then converted it to Lido ETH. Which is, because staked ETH you can't trade. The problem is they have such a large position that they can't trade the is it Lido ETH? Can't remember it, but basically it's a synthetic of the staked ETH, so you can trade it and still earn a reward. But the problem is they just can't trade it because there's not enough buyers to buy the position, and so yeah, and I think it scared the market when Ethereum's upgrade got pushed back again, and because it means Celsius still can't withdraw that and cover themselves, but they did a really bad job covering themselves. The thing is with Celsius, let's see what happens. We have Nexo offering to buy them. Maybe they did a better job. Not being totally degen with the customer's money.
Well, we can hope so. That's the thing about the cryptocurrency market as a whole right now. It's still relatively really young, and so you're seeing a lot of trial and error, and people like Do Kwon and Celsius and these random, markets pop up and then just crash or burn or do something just so minor, but then to them, it looks like it's just such a minor problem, but it ends up being their Achilles heel, and it just all comes crumbling down.
Yeah,
I think we still have a lot of those things to go through until this kind of gets, a bit more official, a bit more, perfected.
Yeah, people like Tone Vays and Jimmy Song and such in Bitcoin, they're very quick to call everything a scam. And I think scam's such an important word because you don't want to call, let's say, Ethereum a scam and then, BitConnect a scam. And then people go, oh, well, Ethereum's not a scam, even though they're calling one. So BitConnect might not be a scam either. That people don't really, that word is really important for actual scams. But there is economic theory that's being tested in this space, which is really interesting because you don't need gulags in certain geographical regions to test out economic theory, right? You can try something and people can voluntarily test it out. But at the same time, where's that line of this looks really interesting, but it's economic theory is more like art rather than a science. It's let's see what happens here with this. But I think this space is super interesting. I like to, why we're focusing on over collateralized, because I do believe there's a lot of really good, 4 years of data from MakerDAO, and also the bonding mechanisms have been nicely tested out. They're still very new, but I think we really took what has worked in the space, what has worked historically, like gold. I mean, gold is 5,000 years of historical data of holding pretty good value. Like, if there's a war that happens, gold pretty much secures its value, and when the war finishes, it's still got value. Whereas the fiat usually gets absolutely decimated in that region, and so gold is a really good thing to plug into the stablecoin market. And a lot of people don't realize, but there's $10 trillion worth of bullion just sitting in vaulting facilities around the world. We use Brinks in Switzerland and Zurich, but there's vaulting facilities around the world. And 10 trillion, 5 trillion of that is held by governments, but the other 5 is held by private citizens, and it's just sitting there gathering dust and holding value, which it does really well. But putting that into the DeFi space, you're looking at, we don't even have a trillion in the DeFi space. There's no. So it's a huge amount of capital, and I'm definitely not saying we're going to get 5 trillion of it, but it's a potential, and a lot of people, have been, and there's a lot of people that don't want to sell their gold, but they would like that liquidity. So, and I've been to so many conferences where the gold people, they've been trading on the same spot for years, and they're like, how do we get into the crypto market? How do we do this? And I have to keep saying to them, wait until we launch, because then we can help you tokenize your bullion, allow your customers to send it to a smart contract and borrow against it. And I think there's just a huge potential there, especially when you come to having 0% interest on that. So I think there'll also be a lot of people wanting to take their mortgages and pay them off and have a 0% loan against themselves if they've got the liquidity to do that. There's just so many cool use cases for what we're building. Although, these bear markets really show that borrowing from yourself is also dangerous. I'm not saying it's a panacea.
Well, I mean, just right now, the Federal Reserve just announced a 0.75% hike on rates. Just right. So you're seeing, not only the crypto market is extremely bearish, but you're seeing the overall world market just looking like it's about to shrug off itself. It's
It's not, I mean, this is a problem. This should have been done years ago. This should have been done years ago. The problem is that they pushed the can down the road. Black Swan, like COVID, came along, or maybe it was planned, who knows. But it came along, and now they've printed trillions more. And so lifting rates now, which they have to do basically to slow the money supply, is going to hurt like fuckery. And they should have done it back in 2008. That's when they should have done it. They should have let the banks fail. It would have hurt some people. They should have lifted interest rates, and it would have been fine. And in Europe, we've had negative interest rates. That's actually why we don't have a euro stablecoin, centralized one, because if you hold a bunch of euros in the bank, you get charged interest for that. So, they should have done it ages ago. I think we're going to see a lot of pain. We're going to see a massive global, downturn for probably a few generations, maybe even, hopefully not. But we'll definitely see a new world order arise. Like, when I say that, I don't mean Alex Jones' new world order, but like probably China. I mean, like China.
People aren't coming. But maybe a new financial institution.
Definitely China will be the dominant order.
Oh yeah, if you look at China's economic growth, I think they only had if we're looking at just the past 100 years, just to condense really everything, the Chinese economy was, I think, maybe 5% of ours back during World War II. And then you see 15 years later, it's 30% of ours. And then you see 40 years later after that, you see it's like, it's 70%. And then now they are right under us, and they are a powerhouse. They're, economic growth at cost of anything, and they're pumping everything out, especially in tech. And so you see a lot. I think in the coming years, you're going to see, America, unless they start really pumping some stuff into gear, we're definitely going to be overtaken by the Chinese economy as far as total value. And definitely this definitely going to make some changes. Even if you're not even looking at economics, you're looking at just like, let's look at just the basic stuff like PhD. Like PhD holders are certified geniuses. America
Absolutely, that's the key. That's the key. Yeah.
Yeah,
like that education is that's where it's at. Yeah.
Yeah, and we used to be it. America, we were the ones being like, all right, like we're spitting out Einstein's, like Eminem spitting raps, like that was our thing. And then all of a sudden, just like we exit the 90s, and all of a sudden you see our educational system pretty much just inflate itself to beyond proportions that anybody could have seen. And we're not producing these PhD, holders. We're not producing these geniuses or these, groundbreaking scientists anymore. We're being, hand over foot taken over by China, pretty much producing, everything. Not from our T-shirts to the guys creating the next Sonic, or Sonic engine or something like that. It's everything is being overtaken by them, and it's because they're there for winning. A lot of my the thing is a lot of misconceptions. It's the huge big red, emphasis on the red button. Everybody looks at China, they're like, communism. And then if you have your political stripes, that's something that you can disagree with on. However, whenever it comes to education, they are slapping us silly, and whenever it comes down to it, education will equal economics. They will be the ones that beat out everybody else, because our economy cannot run on dumbasses. That is the ground floor economics 101. If you can't even understand economics 101, then there will be no economics. And
talking of economics,
there's this one of my friends. He is a foreign exchange student from China, and he's up in New York studying cybersecurity and computer science, everything like that. And whenever he came to America, he told me, he was like, Jared, I had no idea how crazy, expensive, and convoluted your guys' education system was until I came here. Because over in China, I came from what you guys would consider lower middle class family. Right. But I made good grades in my high school, and I studied hard, and so the government approached me. They're like, guess what? You're going to college, and it's taken care of.
Yeah.
You obviously have the aptitude, so you're gonna make a future for yourself. And he didn't have to worry about it. He was just like, okay. Like he had his answers just because they knew. They were like, we have to invest in these smart people if they don't have the ability to invest in themselves. And so, you're seeing that, like you said, that new world order is going to come in this next about 10 years, I think, is really going to be a huge, you're going to be seeing a lot of the setup in the next like 2-3 years.
Yeah, I mean, you have, there is there is some sort of black swanny, not really black swanny, I guess it's sort of, you can think about it like this, that China had a one-child policy for very, very many years, and so they have a lot of basically boys, and and they're all becoming very, very old now. And so because they're a communist country, there is a huge amount of liability on the retirement schemes. And so the older generation, basically, they cannot produce anymore. You got millions and millions and millions and millions of people that are basically getting looked after in the hospital system. There's all sorts of costs, not just the cost of the pension, and you've got very, very few young people because of the one-child policy actually paying for it all, and so let's see what happens. I think, that could be something that brings them down a little bit. It was a short-sighted problem.
I mean, you're seeing a lot of population problems across the board. I think you have a very strong point, though. China is probably going to feel the brunt of that because of that policy. I mean, Japan's having a population problem. They are well beneath their ability to maintain their current population. It's at a downtrend. And same here in America. We're at a downtrend on our population. We don't have the sustainability for it. As far as new babies being born and everything.
Yeah, but Australia's been paying people to have babies for years now. Yeah, you get like a baby bonus. Of course, the only thing that happens is like slot machines go up, and when they introduced that, slot machine profits went up because it was just sort of lower class people that were taking advantage of it. But,
I see Aya is joining and leaving. I think he doesn't realize that you get muted on entrance, and I manually unmute you. So maybe just tell him that. But let's bring it back to the standard. As far as your partnerships go, what kind of partnerships? Because on your website right there, if you just scroll down, you see all these beautiful partnerships. You guys see a couple of the the masterminds behind this stuff is there as well. Can you explain as far as the point of these, the extent of it, your plan with these?
Yeah. So as we roll out, we really had to think about, okay, what happens when you launch a currency, especially a stablecoin in the blockchain space. How do you get it to market? And the first step is obviously to conquer the native area, which is cyberspace. I refuse to call it metaverse.
I respect it.
And so it's really about the crypto space and making partnerships in it, dealing in it, getting other DAOs to hold the currency on their balance sheets or within their treasuries, and then as you get wider and wider into the DeFi space, you then go into the real world and start to talk to Airbnb comes to mind, but I don't want to say Airbnb. I'm just saying they're a company that have a global reach. They're in many countries dealing with many different currencies, and they've actively said they want to accept crypto. And I think when they do that, I think they'll want stablecoins because they're super useful and they still have the programmability and everything else that Bitcoin has. So, I think then conquering the markets, like trying to deal with invoicing and such like that, partnering with invoicing companies. I've got good friends at BitPay and stuff like that. So first up, get into the DeFi space, into the NFT marketplaces, get into that whole space, and then after that, get into the real world.
Well, at least you're looking out for more than just the crypto space. I feel like a lot of partnerships made with blooming potential projects such as yours, they really only focus on the crypto space partnerships, and in reality, short-sightedness, it's strong. It's going to help you. But long term, you're always looking for conversion from the outside world into the cryptoverse, because as we're standing right now, you have to look at, especially in this bear market, overall, if we're being optimistic, 2% of the world's population is really, I feel like that was the latest percentage saying, like, they are actually, like, associated, like, like air quotes, like associated with crypto. And then you have to really realize, like, of that 2%, what percentage of that are actually actively involved in the cryptoverse. If we're going to just say pessimistic, I always like to say pessimistic. Let's just cut that in half, because you have to realize most people that are associated in crypto, they probably know about Bitcoin and Crow and Ethereum and whatnot like that. Maybe they threw a couple of dollars in, here and there, but most of them, that's really the extent. They don't know the technology behind it, and that's where we have to change things. That's what we do here at the DAO. We pride ourselves, mass adoption will only happen through mass education, and something like your project that will bring an actual over-collateralized stable coin to not only the crypto markets but the real world markets. That will be an accessible in for a lot of people. So
like if we look, one of the things that I noticed really prominently is, I got into Bitcoin back in late 2010, and I always thought, man, it's going to take off really quickly. Back then, Roger Ver was still on Team BTC, and it was a small community, and I really thought we would get adoption really quite quickly. That it would, we'd start to get shops, because we'd all go into every shop you see and you're just constantly going on about crypto. The thing was, it didn't really happen, and then I came over to Europe for a while, and I went back to Australia, and in the meantime, in like 2 years, Alipay and was it Alipay, the other one. Anyway, Alipay basically was everywhere. The Chinese from the Alibaba marketplace, and all of a sudden we had Alipay at every single shop. Pay with Alipay. It's like there were all these stickers everywhere, and so really what it comes down to is getting strong business development teams on the ground, knocking on doors, incentivizing education, incentivizing people to get educated, and to also start accepting, in their case, it was Alipay. So having a strong business development side to the protocol, I think, or to the DAO, sorry, is, I think, really a strong and important feature to get out of the crypto space, to only be out of, not only in the crypto space. And I think this is one of the, apart from Luna being, built on pretty Ponzi mechanics, meaning, you didn't need to get new clients in to pay for the old ones, but you could just mint new ones rather than getting new clients in, so it was even worse.
Who needs more clients? I can just mint more clients.
Exactly, and I think the biggest downturn the biggest problem with Luna, and why it collapsed so quickly, was because they didn't have actual use case. The main use case was to chuck their stablecoin into Anchor Protocol and earn that sweet 20% return, and so I do believe that if Luna actually went and did their job, going around and trying to get more and more acceptance, it might have lasted longer. It would have collapsed at some time, because it was just built on a snowball mechanic. But it might have lasted longer. And so, if we take lessons from things like Alipay, from WeChat Pay, they really put effort into going door to door, getting people educated, incentivizing payment systems. And what the Cryptoverse has done in the meantime, since I got into it, was really educate people. Because back then they'd be like, if you try to get someone to accept something other than the local currency, they look at you very suspiciously, and so they should. And so, but what's happened over this time is people are getting used to, right, you want to, accept this cryptocurrency. Oh, interesting. Yeah, what is it, and how does it work? And All right. Yeah. And so I think they're a lot more open to actually doing that. And if it's stable, pegged to the local currency, the taxation problems are a lot more palatable because, it's pegged, so you don't have the constant variable of market volatility,
Yeah.
hopefully.
Well, I mean, I think Luna is definitely going to be a cornerstone for education on what not to do, and even on a little bit some parts of it on what to do, and especially what not to do for stablecoins and just ecosystems as a whole moving forward.
Oh, true, and I mean, people need to touch. Kids sometimes need to touch the candle to understand what fire feels like.
What was that?
Without too much damage. But the problem is that it just is crazy to me that people jumped straight after Luna, like direct. They didn't even blink, and they went across and started using USDD, which was offering 20% APY. All the same stuff, and the exact, literally copy paste Luna over to Tron.
Well, you saw Luna 2.0 had an 80% crash day one. People were like, and then also Do Kwon's, he's getting investigated by the SEC now. And in addition to that, a huge thing that happened that was whenever he let out that voting system, like, hey, what should we do? Should we burn or should we just fork? And within the first hour, it was a 95% yes to burning. And then apparently he's getting investigated now. I called it because I saw this thing, and all of a sudden you see I want to say 6 hours later, there was no votes being put into no as far as to fork it. And then all of a sudden, 6 hours later, 65 million votes came in for no and to just fork. And people are like, wait a minute, wait a minute, that's suspicious. And so he's getting investigated for that as well. And I think it's gonna, what was that one company in the 90s that was all a Ponzi scheme, and it was and it caused a huge crash. Everybody lost their jobs. It was terrible. It was one of the most iconic. I cannot remember for the life of me, but it reminds me of that. And when it happened, it caused a lot of new regulations to come about. Yeah. The whole financial sector. And I feel like that's what's going to happen. This bear market, it's going to kill off a lot. If not, man, I really wish all just fake terrible projects, and it's going to cause a lot more. Use this with a light, some great assault, but regulation in the space where people are hopefully more aware. Because it needs to happen.
The thing is that. I guess you're talking about the Bernie Madoff scandal in the 80s.
Well, there's Bernie Madoff, but there was a huge company, and I can't remember.
I
can't remember. Dharma.
This one,
Dharma has a question. What is up, Dharma?
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Hey. Hi, I'm Dharma. Thank you so much for being a part of this and all that. I'm really, really sorry that I missed this. So if this has been covered, I do apologize in advance.
No problem.
Yeah, thanks, man. But since you guys are revolutionizing stablecoins, that's kind of the whole push from my understanding of the website. I don't know if you saw this thing about the stable that's going to be pegged to electricity. What do you think about that? What's your take on it?
I don't know. I have to look into it. I haven't heard about it.
Well, I can give you a quick rundown. It's effectively no problem, man. It's basically, let me find it. A fully decentralized stablecoin scientists have claimed to have found that's pegged to electricity. A lot of the technology that would be required apparently does not exist yet. But it's at Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory in California. They've combined information theory, statistical mechanics to create a new theoretical class of stablecoin dubbed the electricity stablecoin that would transmit energy as a form of information. Which, doesn't need to transmit electricity through a physical wire or grid or anything, and it can create a fully collateralized stablecoin pegged to a physical asset, literal electricity, that's dependent on its utility for its value.
I mean, if you think about it, that's kind of what, I mean, you could say that's what the standard does as well, because we allow people to collateralize with Bitcoin, and Bitcoin is basically proof of work, being electricity has been spent and stored. That value of the electricity being burnt is stored in the coin, and you collateralize and create a stable coin. But yeah, it's a little bit different. I'm sure. I have to look into it, man. It sounds interesting.
It's interesting though, isn't it? I thought you might find that interesting, man, because it's like stable coins and stable coins. I thought, might be something to bring up, something to touch on.
Yeah.
It's funny, that makes me think a little bit of like smart meters and how, a lot of electricity suppliers are already metering, the public and public consumption at a house by house level. If you could tap into that data and basically say like, hey, we see that you've consumed X amount of energy. Here's a credit through crypto for that energy use. Might be an interesting approach as well, but that other one sounds like Tesla kind of level stuff. I'll have to dig into
radiant energy stuff. Yeah.
I mean, it's interesting because if energy is one of these things that are always tried to stay as the world has tried to keep it as scarce as possible because you can earn more from it. But I don't know, we're all sitting on a massive ball of infinite energy. I mean, the earth has just got, just dig deep enough and you've got basically, we're sitting on a massive ball of lava.
Well,
I mean, I don't know. I don't understand why there's this lack of energy on this planet. I always
it's the light bulb companies, man. No, there's a concerted effort to keep new technologies, whether it's hydrogen in cars or light bulbs that last 150 years or whatever it might be, right? They want consumer dependence, because that's how you generate profit in an industrialized society. Anyways, hey Josh, how's it going? Sorry I missed a good bit of this. I was getting vetted for a manufacturing position. I needed to give that some attention.
No worries.
Did it go well?
Yeah,
Yes.
I may have convinced them to go ahead to pay me the same amount of money for part-time work, and I get to be a private contractor and work from home. So we'll see.
Nice.
We're gonna package it up and send it up to the C-suite boys and see if if I can double my income stream.
Hey man,
Nice.
dude, I'm super happy for you. I knew you were excited for that. Just send me through.
Thanks. Yeah. I'm not interrupting the middle of the AMA, am I?
Yeah, it's more along tapering towards the end. It's fine.
Okay, sorry. Let's continue with that trend. Don't let me derail you, Josh.
No. We were just kind of heading off. Honestly, if we wanted to, we can kind of taper off right now. I would like to, because we do have our regular streams coming up here in, about 30 minutes. But I would like to continue this conversation just like off the record, because there's a lot more of that like energy stuff you guys are talking about. There's a lot of stuff from that. It's just like that guy that built a engine in Texas that ran off of water, like salt water and stuff. Dead. Murdered.
Well, before we get into the tinfoil hat area, let me just specifically break down. So as I've been doing work in different industries, whether it was manufacturing or cryptocurrency or just in general, real estate deal brokering, I've had my hand in a lot of different things with a lot of different teams, and I find that Josh and Lauren and Thea and the team at the Standard are one of the most effective and courteous and fantastic teams to work with. They're very transparent, they're very open, and they support their community a lot, so they're looking out for their investors on every step of the way, and I have absolute faith that these guys are already delivering because I mean I know they're already working. You already have your MVP, as far as I know, for the standard, and
It's not launched yet, but it's getting close to. Yeah.
right. So
But
I have
thanks for the kind words, Tristan. That's
yeah,
nice of
man.
you.
I've worked with a lot of different people, and these guys consistently make me want to fly out to Germany and hang out with them. So, there is not another team in crypto that I would be working with right now, even if it were still a bull market.
We're working on the transparency stuff to be more transparent as well, even more. It's one of these things that, for instance, our developers are like, we don't want to open source yet because we haven't got a product yet. And I said, well, you want to do it soon, and they just keep saying, well, we want to get something out there, and then we open it, and people can then add and change stuff, but without a product yet. We're still sort of keeping it a little bit under the wraps. But yeah, as we grow, that'll change, and we've got other team members there as well that are working on making the treasury more transparent and stuff like that. So this will happen as we grow.
Did we talk about the potential of like the users or people coming in and generating stables in regards to commodities at all?
We haven't really talked about it yet. In terms of we're focused generally on gold and silver because gold is the second most liquid market in the world under the FX market. So and we have deep connections in that space. But there definitely is other commodities. A heap of people have said, hey man, NFTs, NFTs. The problem is with NFTs as collateral, they're so many of them are full of shit and basically sitting on bullshit air, that you don't know what their real value is. And they're very illiquid.
It's not even vaporware. It's like a vapor JPEG. Like, yeah.
Yeah. And so, as much as I find that the area interesting, I think NFTs aren't really a thing unless there's a project that's really liquid, and maybe people will solve that issue. But property, like real estate, is another one that's interesting, but again, it's not that liquid unless you have a company that has many, many assets scattered around the world and they tokenize their stock.
Right.
Maybe something like that. You could do that. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different projects out there working on tokenizing real world assets, but there's issues with tokenizing real world assets, and that's why we haven't seen that really take off yet. And I've been saying that for years.
Especially real estate, especially because I mean, there's already, I've personally invested in 3 projects that have attempted to do this, and because whoever does it effectively first is going to do very well. The problem is, again, like you said, it's an extremely illiquid market that is entirely dependent upon traditional finance structures that are outside of everybody's control. So the whole goal of this is to sidestep all of that.
Exactly.
So who knows? Maybe we can supply gold liquidity in the future for real estate.
Yeah. Well, that's it. I mean, it's there's a bunch of stuff that needs to be solved, including a storage fee, like demurrage, costs of holding real world assets and stuff like that. But also, with property, we've looked at it. I had a project that I was building to tokenize gold that's under the ground, so that we didn't have to dig it up, and you'd have a DAO basically that would have the money in a smart contract to dig it up if 51% of the holders wanted to. And the good thing, because I realized we bought so much gold, we dig it out of the ground, like it would literally not see the sun. It would go from the ground to the smelter, be smelted to bars, and then be shipped to Brinks and sit there, and then the ownership would change. And I'm like, why are we destroying the earth in that
why?
region?
For it to sit in a metal box that's probably also already underground.
Yeah. It's kind of really strange. Humans are wacky. But yeah, so we're looking at that project. The problem is, you start to get into, well, what if the owner of the land that has the gold vein, dies and the son inherits it, and then the son decides to sell it, and the DAO's like, what? And I mean, there are solutions like trusts and stuff, but
right. But it almost require you to own the land first, as well as the mineral rights.
Exactly, and then you put that into a trust, and the trust has to have certain rule sets. But yeah, it's something that a lot of companies are trying to figure out because it is very lucrative. And if someone does sort it out, then the DAO can vote to have that as collateral. Another wacky one we were thinking is whiskey, because whiskey does also sit in massive vats, and it gets more expensive the older it gets. And it's
a pretty liquid market, especially the worse the economy does, the better that's going to do,
Definitely. Yeah. Traditionally, drinking and gambling and prostitution also does well in those markets.
We'll stick with the whiskey aspect of it.
Yeah, stick with the whiskey.
I think it's interesting. Well, if you need connections with distilleries, there's only about 25 of them within a driving distance of my house. So.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it's insane.
Get the angels share in the air.
Yeah, it's absolutely absurd. So.
Nice.
Well, great. Any announcements that we can look forward to?
Actually, it hasn't been announced yet, but it's on the website. Patrick Friedman just joined, the grandson of Milton Friedman, because he really loves the project, because we're pretty much, sort of embodying what his grandfather had in mind in a lot of the philosophy stuff. But also he's the founder of Seasteading, has a really great sort of ANCAP background, but a very clever guy, spent 10 years at Google, and he's joined the advisory board. We've also got Florian Grumas to be announced. He's a talking head on Kitco, so very well connected in the gold space. We have, there's a whole bunch of really great, serious projects. One thing, an ask I'd have for the community, if you have other projects that would like to partner, definitely reach out, go into the Standard IO and go to the partner page and the ecosystem page and fill out that form there. And because we're trying to join up as many partners as possible to see where we can work, what they're after, how they want to work. Sort of, even if there's nothing there, we can learn from each other and learn what we need to, think about in the future and how people want to use it.
Build and grow the ecosystem through collaboration with other successful projects. I mean, that's the name of the game. You know. I guess the last thing that I would want to kind of touch on is just to confirm, did you guys talk about I'm assuming you talked about the euro, the S euro, and how that's going to work, especially the initial liquidity of all that?
We talked about the IBCO, the initial bonding curve offering.
Yeah.
This will be a really, really great tool. I'm really looking forward to launching it. The IBCO paper is on the website as well, underneath the white paper. If you guys want to read through that, you can check it out and see what happens there. The 3 phases are outlined in there, and
Awesome. Okay, great. Yeah, well, fantastic. I guess that's about all I have to add to the discussion, since you're a very thorough person when it comes to AMAs. So, Artorias, thank you for hosting this, and thank you very much for just kind of bringing us into your community and allowing us to kind of pitch what it is that we're doing and some of the more exciting things about the future of stablecoins, which are desperately needed at this time. So.
Yeah.
It's our pleasure. We like seeing strong projects like this that are trying to solve the problems instead of just adding more. So.
Yeah, thank you very much. And that's really that's what it's all about. Is when a lot of people are like, oh no, stable coins. Oh look, it's crazy. But actually, it's not like the use case has gone away. I said the other day sometimes when you're investing, you have to look at the wider actual market. So when VW got busted for cheating their emissions, their stock market price just plummeted. But really, nothing had changed about their business. Their patents, they had everything there. So
they still make good cars.
They still make good cars. And what I meant to say with that, the market for cars didn't go anywhere.
No, not at all.
And I think that's the same with. A little bit the same. In the stablecoin spaces, you get these bad actors, and everyone, goes short on the stablecoin idea. But man, like stablecoins are the future. You have to know that because the speculative assets are also not going to go away. But people want to transact with things that are stable. And
stablecoins are the single greatest thing that happened to the crypto industry since the launch, since the exchanges. I mean, with stablecoins, we can actually have effective liquidity pools that mean something to us.
Yeah. I mean, it's in the name. It adds stability, and it's a lot easier to get some stablecoins in to help, transfer from fiat to crypto. On that note, let's I want to get one more question in before we kind of close this off.
Perfect.
From our community member Crypto B. How soon will stablecoins be regulated? How are different jurisdictions working to create a regulatory framework? And to add to more clarification to the question, he said, in particular, there is a desire to remove arbitrage opportunities that could exist if stablecoin business models are subject to looser regulation than commercial bank equivalents.
Yeah, it's definitely really, really interesting, the space. The thing is, regulators, all they can do is really regulate businesses that deal with the on and off ramps, and they can regulate centralized stablecoins. If there's a stablecoin that's created over in some other jurisdiction, there's nothing that a regulator somewhere else can really do about that. They can say that it's illegal for their citizenry to use it, maybe, or for an on and off ramp to accept it. But the fact of the matter is, the whole notion of the cypherpunks and what crypto is about is, and what DeFi is about, is having this space that's regulated by mathematics. I'm not saying that we won't have more and more regulated coins jumping into the space that have like backdoors and inbuilt KYC and stuff like that. But I feel that these coins will only compete with great projects that are decentralized, and they will also compete with CBDCs. So we're running an exchange since 2015. I've had to deal with a lot of regulatory arbitrage, dealing with different jurisdictions and coming up with ways of dealing with the uncertainty that regulators have placed upon the industry for years. And while that's getting a little bit lighter, like in terms of solidifying this regulation, so it's kind of good because it gives structure. At the same time, if you just get we're seeing it already, this sort of regulatory capture where regulators will force a sort of, who's in the background, and that's usually the large old school banking institutions or the bank lobbies to, they see how profitable this space is. They kind of want to regulate the startups out. But yeah, like I said, it's going to mainly affect the on and off ramps, the centralized businesses like Vaultoro or like Coinbase, like Kraken, and they'll deal with that as it comes along, and there'll hopefully be also industry lobby groups that will help sort of even out the pressure that's coming from the legacy banking system. But yeah, the space is definitely something to keep an eye on. We've got a legal team, Gresham International, working for us that are keeping an eye on the legals. But it's about building proper structures, and like one of the things we're doing is that I think is kind of good is putting terms and conditions into a signature. So when you, instead of doing full KYC, you find a message with the Ethereum address that you're using to say that, I'm not in Syria, Iran, North Korea, or New York,
Yeah.
As crazy as that sounds. And you can sign that message and remove liability from the project back onto the user to say, look, you're not allowed to actually use this or whatever. And it's kind of useful.
I think that's super important, and I think that's been the missing step for a lot of DeFi. It's supposed to be about individual responsibility. I mean, that's a big part of do your own research. Make sure your transactions are going to the right place, and you're not interacting. Nobody has any sympathy for anybody if they lose money interacting with sketchy contracts, right? Because that's your choice, or clicking on weird links. So take your own security right. I think that we should maintain personal liability on all fronts, on every level of this, especially for projects like yours that are actively working to legitimately advance the usability and the accessibility of the industry.
Oh,
I think
totally.
I think that's self-regulation along with some responsible, Shane, my opinion on regulation with this space. It's such a tricky beast. But with that being answered, I think that this is a good time to kind of halt it. We have our live streams coming on in about 5 minutes, but I would like to, outro right now. Just, thank you. Seriously, our whole community, thank you very much for coming and explaining your project. I think that it's been a really wonderful time, and it's incredible what you're trying to do and trying to actually add solutions to the space that, like what you're doing for stablecoins. And
thanks.
Anybody that wasn't able to answer, we weren't able to get to your questions, or you have any other things that you want to add to the discussion or get more into it, we will be creating a channel specifically for the standard in our server. So feel free. We'll put all of the necessary information in that channel, and tag a mod will help you. And we'll have their Discord server, we'll have their website, everything that you could need, and we'll answer you to the best of our ability, and also transfer you over to them if anything more.
Awesome.
And just thank you very much for joining us today, and feel free to stand around for we have our technical analysis with Simon coming up, and also blockchain education and news. This has been a great AMA with the standard, here at the Cryptoverse DAO. Thank you everybody for coming, and I couldn't thank the founders enough for coming and answering all of our questions.
Thanks very much. Yeah, cheers.
Just an update, I've created the channel, so if you look under projects of interest, you'll see the standard channel just there. We can interact and have more question answered there. Thank you guys.
Nice.
Awesome. Thank you.